Let me bring in Democratic Congressman Adam Smith from Washington. He's the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks for coming in. What is your reaction to, well, this incident and also what we see in the video released by the Pentagon?
Well, I think there's two things about it. First of all, Russia and China, for that matter, have regularly engaged in this type of behavior in what is international airspace that they somehow deem is too close to them. So they will buzz U.S. Military planes. It's happened to Australian planes down around China. It's a regular effort to sort of back the U.S. and our allies off to try to, claim a broader swath of territory, basically so that Russia and China can operate unchecked. So that in general has been going on for a while, but obviously this is specifically about Ukraine. Russia still has that goal of trying to push us back where they can, but specifically they also want to make sure that we're not close to Ukraine to be in a position to help Ukraine. So it doesn't surprise me that this came from high up in Russia, saying let's try to back the U.S. off to reduce the level of assistance that they're giving to Ukraine. As for what happens now, I don't think anything specific happens. I think the situation stays about where it's at, which is very tense.
It's as I mentioned, we, of course, love transparency and love that the Pentagon put this video out for everyone to see. But are you concerned at all with the video out there that Russia will see it as a reason to respond or escalate further because it directly contradicts its denial?
Yeah, I don't think they'll escalate further. Look, this is a very, very delicate balance, frankly, on both sides. On our side, the Biden administration has made clear from the very beginning, when we suspected that Russia was going to invade, when we knew Russia was going to invade, that we had two big goals. One, help Ukraine, help make sure that we preserve a sovereign, democratic Ukraine, and help them to preserve the territory that is theirs, that is their sovereign territory. But second, don't get into a direct conflict between Russia and the U.S. or Russia and NATO. Striking that balance is difficult. And on Russia's side, they would like to see us helping Ukraine less, but Russia doesn't want a direct conflict with the U.S. or NATO either. So there's that delicate balance of trying to push right up to the line, but not step over it, that both sides are doing. And I think that the effort to strike that delicate balance will continue on both sides.
Yeah. I want to ask you, in speaking about Ukraine and the war in Ukraine, Poland just made a big announcement just this morning, saying that it's sending 4 fighter jets to Ukraine, and this is the first NATO country to make this move after Ukraine has been asking for months for this to happen. Does this, do you think, change President Biden's calculation as he has remained resistant to doing the same?
Well, it's not the same is the thing. What Poland is giving them is MiG fighters. That's what Ukraine has been operating for forever, basically. It is much easier to assimilate a MiG into Ukraine defenses than it is an F-16, which they've never flown, they've never operated, they never maintained. And that's the big challenge with giving them the F-16s, is the cost of it. Second of all is the efficacy of fourth-generation fighters in this fight. I mean, the MiGs will help, but they will help nowhere near as much as the artillery, the tanks, the vehicles, the HIMARS systems. That's what's crucial to the fight right now, and that's why President Biden is prioritizing that, and correctly so.
So you don't, and I was looking back at our last conversation, and you were kind of in this same place. You don't think that this should mean that the U.S. should yet move to offer F-16s?
Yeah, like I said, we don't have time for me to give you the long-winded answer about, why the F-16 is so expensive and is going to take so much time to get over there, and why also, even if we did get it over there, it would be difficult to operate effectively. But that's the basic point. We are focused on getting Ukraine the weapons, the munitions, the intel, the support they need right now to win the fight that's going on right now and will crucially be going on in the next 6 months as Ukraine begins to mount a counteroffensive.
Now, I also want to ask you about Russia's war crimes in Ukraine, because in December, Congress modified the longstanding legal restrictions on helping the International Criminal Court, now allowing the United States to assist with its investigations and eventual prosecutions related to the war in Ukraine. The Pentagon, though, according to the New York Times, is blocking the Biden administration from sharing evidence with the ICC. And I had former Ambassador Stephen Rapp on the show yesterday, and he called this out on the show. Let me play for you the point that he makes about this.
It's important, however, that you have political leadership, and the United States needs to be right on this. This is as important as providing Abrams tanks in terms of protecting the people of Ukraine.
He says the United States needs to offer this. He wants to see the Pentagon reverse this position and offer the assistance to the ICC. Do you agree?
Well, I get his point. I mean, the point basically, we should try to enforce human rights to the greatest extent possible on the globe. I think that's absolutely true. Clearly, Russia has committed awful war crimes throughout Ukraine and continues to commit those crimes. But there's two other points on this. First of all, we all want peace in Ukraine, which means at some point, Russia has to stop the war. Russia has to be willing to come to peace, because we are not going to war with Russia. This is not going to be like World War II, where Germany quits and Japan quits because they're utterly and completely defeated. That's not going to happen. So what is going to happen that's going to bring Russia to the point where they're willing to say, okay, we'll sign a peace agreement? Yes, we want to punish Russia. No, we don't want our desire to punish Russia to keep the war going forever so that more people suffer. You have to find a way to make peace. And I don't want this to get in the way of that. Second, the International Criminal Court looks at a lot of stuff that the U.S. has done in a whole bunch of other places. This is the reason DOD is concerned about it. Now, what we have done globally doesn't even compare to what Russia is doing in Ukraine. But right. DOD is concerned that the ICC will come after us as well, and specifically come after them. So I think it's a reasonable concern. And like I said, we do have to, at some point, get to a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia to end this war.
But what about, we talk about leadership and what about the leadership in putting it out there? I mean, you want them to be, you along with every, democracy-loving nation and person wants Russia to be prosecuted for war crimes. If the United States is critical in doing that and has the evidence to offer that up, is the Pentagon standing in the way? How does that look?
Well, again, we're fighting a war right now, and we're trying to, first of all, help Ukraine win that war and end that war. So it's very difficult. I agree with you. Look, in a completely and totally just world, everyone's right. I mean, Russia would be pushed out of Ukraine tomorrow. They'd be held accountable. They'd be forced to repay every single penny that Ukraine has had to expend in this war. They would be tried and held accountable for the war crimes that they committed. Absolutely, and I think we need to state clearly that those war crimes have been committed, and we're committed to trying to find a way to achieve justice for it. But that's not as easy as it sounds when, like I said, at some point, Russia has to come to the peace table and say, we're going to end this war. How do you strike that balance? That's the balance we're trying to strike. Now, state clearly, unequivocally, Russia is committing war crimes and violating human rights every single day. But you do have to have an on-ramp to end this war so that stops.
Congressman, thank you as always for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate the chance.